Opening week is officially upon us, and we have got a lot to talk about. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Brown, and welcome to this edition of Around the Bases here from 110 Sports. Today's show is available on demand only at 110sportsmedia.com, also on YouTube and in podcast form on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. On any of those platforms, just search for 110 Sports for all the latest of our coverage, our live broadcasts, including the J Moles Show and Touchline Talk. So again, today's show available on demand only. We'll be back with you live on the 110 Sports Network at 110sportsmedia.com/live on Thursday on opening day. But today's show, Tuesday, July 21st show, is actually being recorded Monday night, Monday, July 20th, around 10 Eastern. So an important note as we start today's show, any major news or developments that happen in the world of baseball between late Monday night and whatever on Tuesday or later you might be seeing this broadcast are not going to be reflected in today's show. A lot of the news that we are following right now is developing day by day and hour by hour, so it's very possible that a couple of things could change between when I'm recording this on Monday night and when you see it. But I imagine most of these headlines will still be very relevant and pretty timely for the most part as well. So let's go ahead and jump right in and tell you what's coming up here on today's show. We're going to start, as we always do, with the game's biggest headlines. A lot has happened since we last talked on Thursday. A lot of major storylines, a couple of really big ones. We'll talk about those and some smaller updates as well, and some information just in prior to this recording. Then we'll do something a little bit fun. We'll talk about a really fun story, the incredible comeback of Daniel Bard. Name you may not be familiar with at all. If you're a longtime baseball, if you haven't been following baseball very long, may not be familiar with the name Daniel Bard. We'll talk about him. He's back in baseball after a long time away from Major League Baseball. It's a really fun story. We'll talk about that after we go through our headlines, and then we'll continue our series previewing each division in Major League Baseball. Last week we talked about the West divisions. On Tuesday, the AL West and NL West, and on Thursday, we talked about the NL Central and AL Central, and there are companion pieces to both of those shows available at 110sportsmedia.com. I took a look at 3 questions that each team in each of those divisions is facing in 2020, and the same is true of the AL East and NL East. We have companion stories up on the website right now. By the time you're seeing this, those stories are up at 110sportsmedia.com. We'll talk about those in just a little bit as we preview the NL and AL East. And that's it. That's a pretty straightforward show for you today. So let's go ahead and just jump right in with our headlines. So, a number of big headlines from the past couple days, and we'll start with this. The big news from over the weekend. On Saturday, we learned that the Canadian government has denied the Toronto Blue Jays permission to play their home games at the Rogers Centre in Toronto this season. The team has been holding its training camp at its home stadium, and they had been given clearance by the city and the province to play regular season games there as well. So there was optimism building that the Blue Jays would be able to play their home games at their home stadium in 2020. And then came the news on Saturday that the Canadian government had denied their request. Canadian Immigration Minister Marco Mendicino made the official announcement saying, in part, unlike preseason training, regular season games would require repeated cross-border travel of Blue Jays players and staff, as well as opponent teams into and out of Canada. Of particular concern, the Toronto Blue Jays would be required to play in locations where the risk of virus transmission remains high. Mendicino also saying, quote, based on the best available public health advice, we have concluded the cross-border travel required for MLB regular season play would not adequately protect Canadians' health and safety. As a result, Canada will not be issuing a national interest exemption for the MLB's regular season at this time. Toronto manager Charlie Montoyo saying, in part, I love Toronto, but I certainly understand the decision. He also expressed his gratitude to the Canadian government for allowing the team to hold its training camp there and for, quote, keeping us healthy. So what does this all mean? Potential big ramifications. The Blue Jays home opener is just 8 days away from Tuesday. So they're running out of time here to figure things out. The clock is certainly ticking. The Blue Jays open on the road, but again, not long before they're playing or scheduled to play home games. One of the most logical alternative sites for the Blue Jays to play their home games is the team's AAA facility in Buffalo, New York, though that's far from perfect. The lights are seen as insufficient at the stadium there, and the clubhouses there are smaller, which isn't horrible. Obviously, players are used to major league players are used to certain amenities, but that's not the biggest concern. The biggest concern is that the clubhouse being smaller makes it trickier to social distance. TSN reported on Monday that the team had sent operations people to Buffalo to assess the field there and the situation and what would be required. At this point, though, the team seems most interested in playing at a major league stadium. PNC Park in Pittsburgh has been mentioned as a possibility. The Pirates confirmed Monday that they're in active negotiations with Major League Baseball and the Blue Jays regarding the situation. The Blue Jays and Pirates only share 7 conflicting dates for home games in the regular season schedule, so that could work out nicely. Camden Yards in Baltimore is also a possibility, according to Sportsnet. The two teams, the Orioles and the Blue Jays, do not have a home game simultaneously scheduled in September, so that's significant. Again, those are two situations where there would not be a significant amount of conflicts in home games schedule. Toronto Blue Jays general manager Ross Atkins saying on Monday, quote, "Our focus is on getting into a major league facility." Also, according to Sportsnet, Atkins said the team's currently considering, quote, "well over 5 solid contingency plans." So a lot of possibilities in the air now for Toronto with the clock ticking. A hybrid system seems possible. The team could play several of its home games at one major league stadium and other home games at another major league stadium. The team could spend some of its home games at a major league stadium and some of its home games in Buffalo, New York at their AAA stadium. The team could spend some time at a major league park just to get ready, just to improve their AAA park, to get it ready to play home games there the rest of the season. There's a number of possibilities, including that the games that are scheduled to be home games would actually be played at the road team's venue, with the Blue Jays still acting as the home team. So there are a number of questions, a number of things in play. It sounds like a logistical nightmare right now for the Toronto front office. We'll have to continue to see how that plays out. This is one of those storylines where I would not be surprised. Of course, you'll know by the time you see this probably. I would not be surprised if we see some major news on this on Tuesday during the day at some point, or it could be Wednesday or later by the time we have full resolution onto the plan for Toronto. But that's the latest on that storyline. Another storyline big in baseball right now. We talked on Thursday about the Braves reportedly signing free agent outfielder Yasiel Puig to a contract. The deal makes a lot of sense. As we talked about, the deal made a lot of sense for the Atlanta Braves, the team now without veteran outfielder Nick Markakis, who opted out of the regular season. And that was reported back on Tuesday that there had been a deal between Puig and the Braves. And then the days started to tick by, and that deal had not become official. Puig had not shown up at Braves training camp. Then on Friday, 3 days after the initial reports of the agreement, we learned that the deal would not actually be happening. Puig revealed on Instagram that he has tested positive for COVID-19. He said he was asymptomatic and feels, quote, absolutely fine. But it's been reported that the deal between Puig and the Braves is off and that Puig remains a free agent for now. We'll talk about more of the impact of this potentially on the Braves coming up when we preview the NL East. So Puig remains a free agent for right now. That could change, of course. Puig right now, the most important thing is his health and getting those 2 negative tests after he is recovered. So he very well could end up with the Braves in a few weeks, or he could end up with another team, or he could take the whole season off. So we'll have to see how that does develop. Shifting gears here, New York Yankees pitcher Domingo Germán apologized for social media posts on Friday suggesting that he was leaving baseball. On Friday, Germán, who's serving a suspension for violating the joint MLB-MLBPA joint domestic violence policy, posted on Instagram a message in Spanish which translated to "I left baseball. Thanks, my people." Later, he added a second post, but both of those were eventually deleted. And then on Saturday, he wrote, "To my teammates, the Yankees organization, and our fans, I am very sorry for the unsettling post last night. This past year has been very rough for my family and myself, for which I take full responsibility. Not being with not being with my teammates while they get ready for the season, knowing that I have let them down, has taken a toll on me, and last night I let my emotions get the best of me. Baseball is my life, and I promise I am not walking away. I am using this time to get stronger, become a better person and father, and I can only hope that I will get to join my teammates again to make them proud. Thank you to everyone, especially the Yankees organization, for their support. Please forgive me for this mistake." So that was certainly an interesting storyline that had people talking when Herman first posted that he was apparently leaving baseball, but he's clarified that is not the case. The Washington Nationals on Monday announced that Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, will be throwing out the ceremonial first pitch on opening day as the Nationals host the Yankees in the first game of the MLB season. A statement from the Nationals saying Dr. Fauci has been a true champion for our country during the COVID-19 pandemic and throughout his distinguished career, so it is only fitting that we honor him as we kick off the 2020 season and defend our World Series championship title. Another topic I want to talk about amongst the headlines for today: MLB players returning to their teams and talking about their COVID-19 experiences. We talked about this last week as well. We talked about how many baseball players had fortunately been asymptomatic, but that was not the case for all players. Atlanta first baseman Freddie Freeman rejoined the team. He's doing well now after battling coronavirus. Freeman has set a goal to be ready for opening day, and while it's not quite clear if he's going to make that goal or not, he should be good to go soon. And that's obviously good news for Freeman's health and for the Atlanta Braves. But Freeman did share some information with reporters upon his showing up at Braves training camp about his experiences with COVID-19, and I think that's really important for everyone to hear what he had to say. And these are some direct quotes from what the star first baseman had to say. Freeman saying, "Friday night, that was the scariest night for me, this being a Friday a couple of weeks ago. I spiked to a 104.5 fever. Thankfully, Braves trainer George Polis wasn't awake when I texted him because I probably would have gone to the hospital. 2 minutes after that, I gunned my forehead again. I was 103.8, and then I was 103.2 and 103.6, so I was like, all right, if I go above 104 again, I'll probably just start ringing the phone, try to figure this out." Freeman continued saying, quote, "I said a little prayer that night. I've never been that hot before. My body was really, really hot, so I said, please don't take me. I wasn't ready. It got a little worrisome that night." That's Freddie Freeman. His fever went down in the following days. He also experienced aches, chills, and other symptoms. This is a 30-year-old athlete in outstanding physical condition with access to great healthcare resources, battling significant symptoms, a 104.5-degree fever, and fearing for his life. It's important perspective to keep in mind during all this, and the realization and the fact that while many people, especially younger and healthy people, may remain asymptomatic as a result of contracting COVID-19, that is not always the case. And this is very much a serious thing, a serious virus that needs to be taken seriously. Boston Red Sox starting pitcher Eduardo Rodriguez, who is 27 years old, has also rejoined his team after testing positive for COVID-19. He's, of course, since tested negative twice. He, too, talked about the seriousness of coronavirus. Talking with reporters, he said that people should wear a mask, wash their hands, and be careful. Rodriguez said it was all he could do at some points to get out of bed, saying, quote, "I felt like I was 100 years old." Again, a 27-year-old professional athlete experiencing significant symptoms as a result of contracting COVID-19. So again, obviously not a very fun topic, and we're very much optimistic towards just the baseball community in general, towards getting a season off the ground just a few days from now, and that's great. But again, as I keep bringing up show after show, and maybe it may be irritating, it's an important fact of the matter that this is a very serious situation we're in with COVID-19, of course, in the country, and that impacts the sports world, of course, as well. So this is a tricky matter, this is a serious matter, and that we should certainly not take for granted that sports are going to come back fine, that baseball is going to be fine, that this is, we want it, of course, to be an escape from everyday life, but it very much is impacting the sports world as well, and this is a very serious matter. All right, we are going to shift now to a couple other headlines which are more typical baseball headlines that are more interesting. A number of additional Major League Baseball teams have announced their opening day starters. The San Diego Padres will be turning to Chris Paddock. The Phillies will turn to Aaron Nola for his third straight opening day start. The White Sox will go with Lucas Giolito. The Twins with Jose Barrios. The Milwaukee Brewers will turn to 27-year-old Brandon Woodruff. And the Cubs to veteran pitcher Kyle Hendricks. We've had a number of new IL placements of players and players returning to teams after being on the COVID-19 IL. New York Yankees second baseman DJ LeMahieu has rejoined the team after getting the negative test required following an absence due to COVID-19. Pittsburgh Pirates outfielder Gregory Polanco has tested positive for COVID-19, and Pittsburgh relief pitcher Keone Kela was placed on the 10-day injured list. He has been away from summer camp with the team for undisclosed reasons. Kela had been projected to be the Pirates' closer, but of course it does not appear at all that he will be with the team at this point. It does not seem likely that Kela will be with the team come opening day. A few injury updates for you now. Milwaukee Brewers manager Craig Counsell indicated Monday that veteran outfielder Ryan Braun may not be ready for opening day. Braun is yet to play in camp due to various aches and pains, including with his back, oblique, and his neck. Cubs first baseman Anthony Rizzo said on Sunday that he is aiming to be ready for opening day. Rizzo worked out at Wrigley Field on Sunday with no discomfort. He had been diagnosed with rib inflammation, which had been causing him back spasms. New York Mets ace Jacob deGrom made a simulated start on Sunday, and he should be good to go for opening day after back discomfort caused him to leave a start early last week in an inter-squad game. Los Angeles Angels manager Joe Maddon said on Monday that he is not certain that third baseman Anthony Rendon will be ready for opening day. Rendon has been sidelined with oblique tightness. And this is a change from Maddon saying on Sunday that he was confident Rendon would be ready for the start of the regular season. Of course, he signed that massive deal. Rendon, a world champion with the Nationals last year, signed that extensive deal with the Angels in the offseason. The Detroit Tigers placed veteran right-handed pitcher Jordan Zimmermann on the 45-day injured list with a right forearm strain. Zimmermann missed around 2 months last season with similar issues. It seems unlikely we'll see much, if any, of Zimmermann in 2020. San Francisco Giants third baseman Evan Longoria and first baseman Brandon Belt will both begin the season on the injured list. Longoria suffered a moderate oblique strain last week, and Belt has been bothered by heel soreness. Atlanta Braves veteran starting pitcher Cole Hamels will be placed on the IL to start the season due to triceps tendonitis. And Oakland Athletics starting pitcher A.J. Puck was placed on the injured list on Monday with a shoulder strain. Puck is one of the top pitching prospects in baseball. The lefty will see a doctor, and manager Bob Melvin admitted there was a, quote, level of concern during a conference call with reporters regarding Puck. A couple of other final notes for you here in the news items. Atlanta has agreed to a deal with first baseman Matt Adams. It is a minor league deal. Adams had recently opted out of a minor league deal he had with the Mets. The 31-year-old also played with Atlanta for 100 games back in 2017. And Boston pitcher Colin McHugh has opted out of the 2020 season. The 30-year-old right-hander was going to be on the IL for most, if not all, of the 2020 season with an elbow issue, similar to what he was experiencing last year with the Astros. All right, so those are your headlines for this Tuesday, July 20th. And again, a quick note here at the end that some of these things, there may be new developments or major changes by the time you see this show. So again, these are the news headlines as of around 10 o'clock Eastern on Monday, July 20th. So we're going to go ahead and shift gears here to a fun, to an exciting and interesting, a heartwarming story here involving reliever Daniel Bard. The headline of a veteran reliever signing a minor league deal and then making the big league club as part of their opening day roster wouldn't normally be very significant. But Daniel Bard's story is really anything but normal. The 35-year-old has made the Rockies' opening day roster 7 years after his last Major League Baseball appearance. Now, Bard debuted back in 2009 with the Red Sox, and he had a stellar three-season stretch with the Red Sox with a 2.88 ERA in 192 appearances in those 3 seasons. He was considered Boston's closer in waiting. He was looking like one of the better relievers in baseball, and then the control issues started. In 2012, Bard made 10 starts, and he had 7 relief appearances with a 6.22 ERA. He pitched twice in 2013 before being sent down to the minors. He then missed time with injury, and he started having problems with the yips. There were several comeback attempts for Bard, first with the Rangers, and then the Cardinals, and then the Mets, but it just wasn't made to be. Bard was unable to make it back to the major league level. In 2018, he joined the Arizona Diamondbacks as a player mentor and a mental skills coach. And then toward the end of last season, he was playing catch and working out with some big leaguers and minor leaguers, and they said that his throws were impressive, that he was looking really good, that he should consider that he might be able to pitch in the majors again. And that's what he set out to do. He signed a minor league deal with the Rockies, and now, after impressing in spring training and in training camp, Bard, at 35 years old, is set to be on the Rockies' opening day roster. It's an incredible story. Bard's last appearance in Major League Baseball was April 27, 2013. It was Houston against Boston, in an Astros lineup that did feature Jose Altuve just in his 3rd Major League season, but also Brandon Barnes, Brandon Laird, Chris Carter, Ronnie Cedeno, Matt Dominguez, and a Boston Red Sox lineup that featured Mike Karp in left field, Jared Saltalamacchia behind the plate, and Felix Doubront on the mound starting that game for Boston. Oh boy, a whole bunch has changed since then. And now Bard will be pitching when he takes the mound for the Astros in this 2020 season in front of Nolan Arenado. And of course, other Rockies as well. In front of Nolan Arenado, who I'm mentioning for a specific reason. Arenado, a 7-time Gold Glover. Very well established as one of the best players in baseball now for several years. 7-time Gold Glover Arenado. Arenado made his big league debut one day after Daniel Bard's last appearance in the major leagues on April 28th, 2013. So in the time that Daniel Bard has been out of Major League Baseball, Nolan Arenado has broken out and won 7 Gold Gloves. Bard telling Yahoo Sports' Tim Brown, "To be in the locker room this year, I knew I was different on the mound. Obviously, nothing was guaranteed as far as a job during the regular season, but I knew that I was okay with just coming out and being myself and wherever it took me." Daniel Bard, now set to pitch in the major leagues in 2020 after 7 years since his last Major League Baseball appearance. It's going to be a fun story. Hopefully he finds great success in 2020. Apparently he's looking really good, so we'll see how that fares, trying to get the Rockies back in the playoffs in 2020. Just a really fun, uplifting story, and obviously we're hoping for the best for Daniel Bard this season. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take our first break here on Around the Bases. Really short break for you today. When we come back, we'll go ahead and dive into our division previews of the AL and NL East. We'll start with the NL East. We've got an interesting battle in the East. The Braves, the Mets, the Phillies, the Nationals, all with playoff aspirations. And then there's the Marlins as well. We'll talk about them as well when we come back here on Around the Bases from 110 Sports. All right, welcome back here to this edition of Around the Bases from 110 Sports. I'm Chris Brown. This video, of course, available on demand for you at 110sportsmedia.com, also on our YouTube channel, on Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts, where you can just search for 110 Sports to get our shows available in video and audio form. So as promised, we're going to go ahead and shift gears now to continuing our division previews. We, of course, as I mentioned before, covered the West Divisions and the Central Divisions last week. This week, on this Tuesday, leading up to the baseball season, of course, starting on Thursday with opening day, we're just a few days away from that, and we're finishing up our division previews with the NL East and the AL East. As with our divisions for last week, we have stories up on the website right now at 110sportsmedia.com with 3 key questions for each team in each of those divisions. We're going to talk about some of those topics here on today's show, but we're not going to be able to get quite as in-depth as that story does, so check that out at 110sportsmedia.com. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get right to it. We're going to start with the NL East as promised, and we're going to start with the Atlanta Braves. Now, for each of these teams, we're going to go ahead and, just as a refresher, we're going to go through their projected record from Fangraphs. We're going to talk about a player to watch, a key storyline, and just general thoughts for each of these teams. The Atlanta Braves are projected to go 33-27 by Fangraphs. This is an interesting team. This is a very good team. This is a team that does have some questions, though, including in their outfield. It has been an interesting last couple of weeks for the Braves, or really months for the Braves, as far as their outfield situation. At first, they had a little bit of an excess in the outfield. They signed Marcell Ozuna to a 1-year deal. Of course, they have Ronald Acuna, Ender Inciarte, and Nick Markakis as well, so they had a nice group of outfielders. Then the DH gets added to the National League. It makes sense that you slide Ozuna into that DH spot a lot of the days. Then you've got Markakis, Inciarte, and Acuna in the outfield. I've got Adam Duvall as well. Then all of a sudden, Nick Markakis opts out of the season, and their outfield depth isn't looking all that great. Their top outfield prospect, Christian Pache, is also sidelined for a few weeks at least now with an ankle sprain. So the Braves in a bit of a tricky situation in the outfield. Like we talked about at the top of the show, it seemed like they'd agreed to a deal. They probably had agreed to a deal with Yasiel Puig before he tested positive for COVID-19. That deal was off then. And so the Braves have an interesting outfield situation. They're going to have to hope that players out there remain healthy. The Braves are also looking for their first playoff series win since 2011. Last year they were 1 win away from that, and then things went horribly wrong. They became the first team in MLB history to allow 10 runs in the first inning of a playoff game, losing to the Cardinals. So the Braves looking for that first playoff win. There is high pressure on the Braves. One player that I'm watching for in 2020 is Mike Soroka. He's set to become the team's youngest opening day starter of the modern era. He's just 22 years old. I wrote about him in this story, I think that's on 110sportsmedia.com. He was one of the best pitchers in baseball in the National League last year. 13-4 record, a 2.68 ERA. He's an interesting profile. Soroka is. He doesn't have a high strikeout rate, but his home run rate was actually the lowest in the National League last year. So he limits hard contact. It's going to be interesting to see how Soroka fares. He's not like I said, not a strikeout pitcher. It'll be interesting to see how he fares in year two. Braves are a really interesting team. I think they could go a lot of different ways. This is a team that I could see going deep in the playoffs. This is also a team that I think could be a few injuries away from disappointing as well. The Miami Marlins, they are the only team in the NL East without a real fighting chance in the 60-game season. The Marlins are coming off back-to-back last place finishes in the NL East, and that doesn't seem likely at all to change in 2020, even with the 60-game slate where a lot of things can happen. It's going to be a season of evaluation for the Marlins. We're going to see what prospects get a shot. They've got some interesting prospects. Outfielder Monte Harrison and shortstop Jazz Chisholm are both potential prospects that could debut in 2020. And they have some interesting prospects. They're in the midst of course, a rebuild and selling off all of their high-level major league assets over the last couple of years. They do have a good farm system. And so it'll be interesting to see how many of those players get a shot. They also have a number of young starters in that rotation who didn't do especially well last year, but a lot of them have potential. Sandy Alcantara will get the opening day nod for the team. He pitched to a 3.88 ERA over 200 innings basically last year. Real promise there, and they've got some other starters in the rotation who are going to get a shot this season to show that they belong with the team long term. That's really what this season's going to be for the Marlins. Seeing what pieces, evaluating what pieces should really be a building block of the team as it looks to compete in the years ahead. One player I think will be interesting to watch is Jesus Aguilar, who a couple years ago, 35 home runs with the Brewers. Last year's production plummeted, but he's under team control. The Marlins claimed him off waivers from the Rays back in December, and he's under team control through 2023. So Aguilar hoping to bounce back rather, in 2020, and if he does, he could be an asset for the Marlins for years to come. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. He's one of the few players on that team, few hitters that I think could really be impactful in the 2020 season if things break right. The New York Mets are the next team up here in our NL East preview. The Mets are projected to go 33-27. The Mets, they are a fascinating team. Their fans may call them infuriating, but they are always interesting. This is a good team, a very good Mets team, but there are significant questions for me in the rotation behind Jacob deGrom. deGrom is going to be in search of his third straight Cy Young Award. He would join just two pitchers in MLB history who've ever accomplished that. And I have really no doubt that deGrom is going to be outstanding, but where my concern is with the Mets is the depth in the starting rotation. The team now doesn't have Noah Syndergaard, who of course had Tommy John surgery, and Zach Wheeler, who is now with the Phillies and set to take on important roles for the Mets without those two are Marcus Stroman. He's been inconsistent in recent years, and Steven Matz has been less than inspiring the last couple of seasons. Meanwhile, they've got Rick Porcello and Michael Wacha rounding out the rotation. I think Wacha could be an interesting bounce-back candidate, the former Cardinal. Rick Porcello, though, hasn't been good in several years, so they've got some real question marks in the rotation, the Mets do. One of the big X factors for me with the Mets is Yoenis Cespedes, the veteran outfielder, has been one of the best power hitters in baseball when he was healthy back a few years ago. The injuries started piling up. He's played in just 119 games over the last couple of years due to a hamstring strain, 2 heel surgeries, and a fractured ankle, but he's apparently doing well in training camp. He's got good mobility. He's been playing in the outfield. He's looking well at the plate. He is in his mid-30s now, hasn't seen Major League pitching in a couple of years, really, in-game action. So you can't really expect a ton from Cespedes, but if he can regain some of his old ways, he could be a really feared bat in that lineup and one of the top hitters in the National League if things break right. Overall, though, for the Mets, I just don't think they have enough talent in that rotation behind DeGrom. There's some interesting offensive pieces. I think they're definitely going to be in the mix for a playoff spot. Our fourth NL East team is the Philadelphia Phillies. The Phillies are projected to go 31-29, and I would be a little bit more optimistic in my projection of a record for the Phillies. The Phillies are hoping to post their first winning record since 2011. Last 2 years were under manager Gabe Kapler, who in some ways brought the Phillies to better seasons than they'd had in recent years, but the expectations were much higher than around 500, which is where the Phillies were the last couple of years, with the addition of Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, Andrew McCutchen. This is a team that had, so many notable bats and arms in that rotation. The expectations were high, did not work out under Kapler. Now they've got a veteran manager in Joe Girardi at the helm. They've added Zach Wheeler and infielder Didi Gregorius to the mix. They've got a really strong core. I mean, this is a team that has Gregorius and Kingery and Hoskins, McCutchen, Harper, Realmuto. There's a lot of interesting names on this team. They've got a great core. Now we just have to deliver in a way that we haven't seen the Phillies deliver in a couple of years now. What's the impact of those new additions? Is it going to be enough to lift the Phillies to another level, a level we haven't seen them perform at in a few years at least, really in about a decade? I'm going to be interested in seeing what Andrew McCutchen can provide. He was performing really well atop the Phillies lineup last year before suffering a torn ACL. He's apparently healthy and good to go now. He could be a force atop a strong Phillies lineup if things work out. So again, I'm interested in the Phillies. I would project them, I think personally, for a better record than the Mets. Just off the top of my head, I think they'll do better than the Mets. But again, these are both teams with real promise, but also some notable holes as well. The Phillies have some questions at the back of the rotation. Zach Eflin and Jake Arrieta, there are question marks there. Arrieta hasn't really been good at all, really, and just above, maybe a little bit above league average in recent years. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. There's also the wild card that Zach Wheeler could be away from the team for a significant period of time this summer due to the birth of his child. So definitely something to continue to watch, see how the Phillies do, but I'll stop rambling on the Phillies. An interesting team, though, to say the least. The Nationals are our final team up in the NL East. The defending World Series champions are projected to go 33-27. And I have some significant questions about the Nationals. There's different ways to look at it. This is a good baseball team. This is a team that could benefit from the off time, the extended off season, essentially the break, the shortened schedule significantly with regards to the rotation. Steven Strasburg and Max Scherzer pitched really deep. They carried this team in the postseason to the World Series, and both of them had some injury concerns. Scherzer was dealing with some back problems. Strasburg pitching, I believe it was over 200 innings for the first time, or his most innings in a season since 2012. He has an injury history, very well noted injury history. So a lot of innings on these veterans' arms. They get the extended layoff. They're not going to be pitching as many innings in 2020, of course, even if they make a deep postseason run. So that could be really beneficial. Where I'm concerned about the Nationals is the offense and the ability to make up for the loss of Anthony Rendon, who we talked about back in the news for the day, now with the Angels. Without Rendon, I have real questions about this team's offense. They're going to turn to their top prospect, Carter Kieboom, in the hot corner, and he's a really promising prospect, but obviously we can't expect him to replace Rendon-level production at any point in his career, let alone here in really year one of full-time at-bats for Kieboom. Trey Turner's going to lead things off. They've got Juan Soto, who we'll talk about here in a second, in that lineup, but there are real questions. This team's hoping to get offensive production from guys like Starlin Castro, Howie Kendrick, who was really good last year, but he's really old, Eric Thames, and others. There's real questions in the depth of that offense. Where I don't have questions about him being good is with Juan Soto. I do have questions though about Soto's ceiling. What is next for him? He last year became the fourth player in MLB history to record 100 extra base hits before his 21st birthday. He had a home run in the World Series. He was the fourth youngest player to do that. Last year, in his age 20 season, Soto hit 282 with 34 home runs, 32 doubles, 110 runs, 110 RBI, and 12 steals. So where does he go from here? Is Juan Soto going to actually get better? He gets much better. I mean, he's the best player in baseball. So is Soto going to get better? Is he going to experience some? Is the league adjusting to him? I'm really excited to see what he can do in 2020. I really don't have any fears of him, struggling immensely, but like I'm almost just curious, can he be better? I mean, can he be even better because he was outstanding in 2019? But overall, that Nationals offense, I have concerns about the depth without Rendon. Overall, though, I'm still confident in this Nationals team, though they are relying on the arms of Strasburg and Scherzer and Corbin, an outstanding top three, the best top three in baseball, to remain healthy, remain consistent, remain productive. If one or two of those guys goes down for a short period due to injury, illness, or there maybe just one or two of them, one of them's ineffective for whatever reason, and that offense can't get it going, though they could be in some trouble. Overall thoughts on the NL East, though, it's going to be a really interesting division because, like I said, I could really see four teams, sort of like in the NL Central. I could see four teams winning this division, and it would not surprise me at all. I feel like each of these teams has really significant upside, but also a pretty glaring hole or weakness or potential weakness if things don't break right. I have real concerns about the Mets rotation. That's the thing that stands out to me. I think that's going to get in their way. Phillies, though, I'm interested in the Phillies, and I'm interested to see what the Braves can do in 2020. On Thursday's show, we'll go through my predictions for division winners, breakouts, busts, etc. So I'll give you my official prediction and who gets the wild card spots, all that on Thursday. All right, so we've gotten through the NL East here. We're going to go ahead and take one more break here on Around the Bases. When we come back, we will go to the AL East, another interesting division. That is next here on Around the Bases from 110 Sports. All right, welcome back to Around the Bases here from 110 Sports, on demand at 110sportsmedia.com, also on YouTube, on Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. On any of those platforms, just search for 110 Sports. I'm Chris Brown, and as promised, we're going to dive right back in with the AL East, starting with the Baltimore Orioles. And we're just going to we're going to get the bad team of the AL East out of the way first. Every team, every division has their really bad, rebuilding, not promising, rough team, and the Orioles are certainly that for the AL East. They're projected for a 21-39 record by Fangraphs, which seems to me highly optimistic for a team that lost 100 plus games in back-to-back seasons. In 2018, the Orioles were 47-115. Last year, they improved by 7 wins to 54-108, but by many measures, this Orioles team has gotten worse than last year's, on paper at least. The team dealt speedy infielder Jonathan Villar to the Marlins and traded pitcher Dylan Bundy to the Angels. The team's best hitter, their star Trey Mancini, will not participate in the 2020 season as he undergoes treatment for colon cancer. Only one pitcher on the Orioles is projected by Steamer for an ERA below 4. So, my actual question, the way I phrased it in the article at 110sportsmedia.com is, will this team win 15 games? And that seems like an exaggeration, but again, this is a team that went 54 and 108 last year and got significantly worse. At least it seems that way based on who they lost. So, of course, for the Orioles, like other rebuilding teams that really don't have much of a chance, even in the shortened season, it's going to be a season of evaluation. Um, 2020 success for the Orioles is not going to be based on wins and losses. They're looking at what players could be building blocks for their next competitive team. Outfielder Anthony Santander impressed last year, as did Austin Hayes. He's the organization's fifth-rated prospect. He's set to handle center field every day for the team. So there are some interesting players to watch for the Orioles if you're an Orioles fan looking for a bright future. But overall, it's just going to be about evaluation for the Orioles in 2020. Chris Davis is my player to watch. Yeah, that seems kind of sad because Davis has not been a player that many people have wanted to watch in recent years. He's been one of the worst hitters, if not the worst hitter in Major League Baseball over the last couple of seasons. After signing a long-term deal, 7-year deal with the Orioles, he had one good season, solid season, and then it's just been really bad. He was hitting well back in spring training. He still has a couple years left on that contract. The Orioles would love to get some return from that. So we'll see. Maybe Chris Davis can get things going a little bit. I mean, the bar for him to bounce back to some degree is pretty low. He doesn't have to do much for it to be better than it has been. So we'll see how Davis fares in 2020. But we'll shift now to the contenders in the AL East, starting with the Boston Red Sox. They're projected to go 31 and 29. Now, the Red Sox have a great core of hitters in Xander Bogaerts, Rafael Devers, JD Martinez. That middle of the order trio is as good as any in baseball. But there are questions on the hitters that surround them. I don't think there's the depth that they may need to be competitive offensively with a team like the Yankees in that division. Andrew Benintendi is coming off a down year. He's still pretty young, so we don't know. Then you've got Jackie Bradley Jr., hit 225 last year. There are some hitters with some promise, including outfielder Alex Verdugo, who came over in the Mookie Betts trade with the Dodgers. He's got an outstanding arm, impressive line drive stroke. He could be a guy who hits for a high average and really impresses for the Red Sox, a potential top-tier outfielder in Major League Baseball, but again, pretty unproven at the Major League level is Verdugo. This Red Sox team's in an interesting situation because, as I mentioned, that Mookie Betts trade, Betts goes to the Dodgers, David Price goes to the Dodgers. Does that mean they're sellers? No, the Red Sox still have that great core of hitters, but also they don't seem to be in a great spot either. And the biggest hole for the Red Sox, in my mind, is, as I mentioned with so many other teams, but it particularly applies to the Red Sox, their rotation. They've got some significant holes in the rotation. The team lost Chris Sale for the season due to Tommy John surgery. Lefty Eduardo Rodriguez is expected to lead the rotation after an impressive 2019. But as we talked about back in the news headlines, not expected to be ready to go right out of the gate for the team as he is coming back from having COVID-19. So they're going to be turning to Nathan Eovaldi for their opening day start. His 2019 was just horrible. There's no other way around it. They've got Martin Perez, Ryan Weber, and Brian Johnson amongst the depth chart at starting pitcher. It's not pretty. Now, who knows, a couple of these guys could come out of nowhere to be really productive starter, but there are significant holes in that Red Sox rotation. And given the fact that their offense is very much reliant on just a couple of hitters, it seems, I'm really concerned about the Red Sox in 2020. I certainly see a path to them potentially competing, especially if that offense is firing on all cylinders. But I also see significant holes in the Red Sox that could be troublesome in 2020. We'll shift now to the New York Yankees, the favorite for the AL East. They're projected for a record by Fangraphs of 34-26. This is a Yankees team that is really impressive. They now have, the signing of Garrett Cole, the addition of Garrett Cole to that massive contract, gave the Yankees one of the top rotations in baseball and one of the top lineups in baseball. If you were ranking lineups and rotations, I'd say you'd have to have the Yankees in the top five, if not top three, in each of those areas. Then there was the injury to Luis Severino, who is out for the season. So that does with Tommy John surgery. So that does weaken the rotation a little bit, but this is still a rotation with Garrett Cole, James Paxton, Masahiro Tanaka, and others. So this is still a very good rotation with more depth and more options and more versatility in it than last year. And we know the Yankees lineup is great. The question is health, health, and health. Can the Yankees remain healthy? Had the season started on time back in the spring, they would have been without Paxton, Stanton, Judge, and Hicks, in addition to being without Severino. And now, aside from Severino, all those other players, those key contributors, are expected to be good to go for the start of the season. But Judge has dealt with injuries in recent years. We all know Stanton's dealt with injuries. Hicks has battled injuries. There are significant questions in terms of, can these players remain healthy? If they can, this is a lineup that has Gleyber Torres, DJ LeMahieu, Luke Voigt, underrated at first base, that has Giovanni Urshela with a out-of-nowhere breakout year at third. Miguel Andujar is back. Stanton, Judge, Gardner, Hicks, an outstanding lineup. Gary Sanchez behind the plate, and a rotation that looks pretty promising. The Yankees are certainly the team to beat in the AL East for good reason. But one team that I think could I wouldn't even say surprise, but could give the Yankees a run for their money is the Tampa Bay Rays. The Rays are projected for a 33-27 record in 2020. Now, this is by Fangraphs, and a lot of these projections we're looking at are showing teams pretty close because, again, we're talking about a 60-game season. As I flip back to the Yankees, that's one more win than the Rays. That's a one-game difference in the division. So clearly, the projections here showing that they like the Rays as well as the Rays to give the Yankees a run for their money. This is an interesting team that has a great deal of depth. They've got an outstanding, underrated trio leading the rotation in Charlie Morton, Blake Snell, and Tyler Glasnow. Obviously, health concerns that might be better in the 60-game season with none of those pitchers expecting to pitch heavy workloads. They've got some other exciting pitchers. Yanni Chirinos, Ryan Yarbrough both impressed last year. They've got the best farm system in baseball at their disposal. They've got an outstanding bullpen. They've got position players that can mix and match at all these different positions more than they know what to do with. So they're going to be able to absorb if there's injuries, if there's illnesses, if they're going to be able to absorb those better and handle those and be in a better position to overcome those more than most Major League Baseball teams, I really feel like. They've got an outstanding bullpen, like I said, that's considered one of the best in baseball. A lot of the arms in that back end of that rotation that are so impressive had breakout runs down the stretch last year, including Nick Anderson and Diego Castillo. But there are some questions because they're not really proven elite relievers. But if they can repeat, if this offense can just sort of cobble together enough offense, not even cobble together, they don't necessarily have to have a star hitter. When they just have so many hitters that are competing for spots, they can mix and match. And they've got an outstanding top of the rotation. If they can stay healthy, the Rays are going to be a really fun team to watch in 2020. And I want them to, because I'm not too optimistic about Boston. I wouldn't project the next team we're going to talk about to be really great. So I really hope the Rays at least make things interesting with the Yankees here in 2020. So we'll shift to the final team now in the AL East. That is the Toronto Blue Jays. They're projected to go 27-33 by Fangraphs. And that's certainly a fine projection. You don't have too high of expectations of the Blue Jays, but I could definitely see a scenario in which they could surprise some people and flip that to maybe 33-27 in a good scenario. The Blue Jays, there's some questions in their rotation. You've heard me say it for so many teams now at some point. It starts to lose its meaning, but there are questions of the Blue Jays rotation. The team brought in Hyunjin Ryu, formerly of the Dodgers, to lead that rotation. But there are questions beyond those in their rotation. Tanner Roark, Chase Anderson, Trent Thornton, all with ERAs above 4 last year, projected to be in that rotation. There's some significant questions there. There are also questions when it comes to the offense, but there's some incredible potential when it comes to the Blue Jays offense. Really impressive young hitters. Their top 4 hitters in the Blue Jays lineup in terms of age, 22, 25, 26, and 21 years old. The projected top 4 hitters in the Blue Jays lineup. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. disappointed a little bit last year, but again, he's 22 years old. There's still plenty of time for him to figure this out at the major league level in terms of being an elite hitter that people expect him to be. They've got Cavan Biggio, Bo Bichette, Lourdes Gurriel Jr. This is an exciting offense. It's unclear how many of these players are going to step up, how many of them are going to take that next step or continue the production from last year, carry it over into another year production as the league tries to adjust to them. I think you have to be cautious in being too excited, which is why I think that 27-33 projection makes sense. But if enough of these hitters click, I could see the Blue Jays being a really good offensive team. I just don't see that rotation being better than okay. But an okay rotation with an offense that's really clicking, certainly enough to put you in a playoff hunt. And I could see the Blue Jays doing that and being a surprising contender, at least for a wild card spot in 2020, if the chips fall right. So that is the AL East. So again, overall thoughts, Orioles are bad. Yankees are the favorite. Health is the question with them. My pick we'll talk about on Thursday. You could probably guess it's going to be the Yankees, but I really hope the Rays are able to challenge them. I think their depth could be really impactful for them, really helpful for them in competing in the shortened season where so much is going to be changing so rapidly. The Red Sox have some significant holes, but that offense, the middle of the order, is so impressive. I think they'll definitely be a contender. The Blue Jays could surprise some people as well. So that's a look at the AL East. Like I said, we're going to talk on Thursday. I'll offer my predictions for each division. I'll lay them out. I'll put them in a way that people can turn back to and say, you were way off 60 games from now. Because undoubtedly so many crazy things are going to happen in this season. But I'll make those official projections, wildcard spots, breakouts, awards on Thursday's show. So that's just sort of your overview. And again, a reminder, we did not get into everything that I had written about, investigated for these AL and NL East teams. You can view the full stories at 110sportsmedia.com. There I'll have 3 questions for each of those teams. So that is a wrap for this show, for this July 21st broadcast. Again, a reminder, if you made it to this point, I'm sure you know this was a pre-recorded on Monday night, July 20th, around 10 Eastern. So any news items and things that have happened in the last 12 to 18 hours in Major League Baseball are not reflected here. We will be back with you live on the 110 Sports Live Network at 110sportsmedia.com/live on Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern with our opening day broadcast of Around the Bases, projections, predictions for awards, for standings, for wildcard spots, the teams I'm excited about, the players I'm excited about, the players I think are going to bust. All that will be on Thursday. We'll be live just hours before the first pitch between the Yankees and the Nationals. It's going to be outstanding. We'll have the latest developments. You can count on that here from 110 Sports. A couple reminders before we head out. Remember to subscribe to the 110 Sports newsletter. Just go to 110sportsmedia.com. Right side of the homepage, below the featured stories, is all the information you need to subscribe. That newsletter hits your inbox every Friday with all the latest 110 Sports written content and links to all our podcasts and broadcasts. Our shows on the 110 Sports Network are there, so just go to 110sportsmedia.com to subscribe to that. Our live coverage continues with the J-Moles show on Wednesday at 11 Eastern, then Touchline Talk on Thursday at 11 Eastern, and then again, back with you live at 110sportsmedia.com/live on Thursday with our opening day broadcasts. Looking forward to it. As always, stay safe, and I will talk to you on Thursday.